you can become the world's #1 expert in this field. And it's not that difficult to do that. You have to just remain consistent, because nobody else is trying to do that. Everybody else is just reading the same news and discussing the same news every day. But this way they don't get to have a competitive advantage. If you do the same thing everybody else around you is doing, you don't have any competitive advantage. And you don't get to become outstanding at some point in your life. Well, the biggest enemies of freedom are fear and greed. So you make sure that they don't stand in your way. If you imagine the worst thing that can happen to you and then make yourself be comfortable with it, there's nothing more left to be afraid of. So you stand your ground and you remember that it's worth living your life according to the principles that you believe in, even though this life can end up being shorter than a longer life, but lived in slavery. In a way, you have to go against your instinct of self-preservation. And it's not easy. We are all biological beings, hard-coded to be afraid of death. Nobody wants to die. But when you approach it rationally, you live and then you die. There's no such thing as your death in your life. You stop experiencing life once you die. So you have to ask yourself this question: is it worth living a life full of fear of death? Or it's much more enjoyable to forget about this and live your life in a way that makes you immune to this fear, at the same time remembering that death exists so that every day would count.
One of the different things you do is you don't use a phone, except occasionally to test Telegram features. But I've been with you for 2 weeks. I haven't seen you use a phone at all in the way that most people use a phone, like for their social media. So can you describe your philosophy behind that?
I don't think a phone is a necessary device. I remember growing up, I didn't have a mobile phone. When I was a student at the university, I didn't have a mobile phone. When I finally got it to use a mobile phone, I never used phone calls. I was always in airplane mode or mute. I hated the idea of being disturbed. My philosophy here is pretty simple. I want to define what is important in my life. I don't want other people or companies, all kinds of organizations telling me what is important today and what I should be thinking about. Just set up your own agenda. And the phone gets in your way.
It provides distractions. It guides what you should be looking at, what you will be looking at. So you don't want that. You want to quiet the mind. You want to choose what kind of stuff you let inside your mind.
Yes, because this way I can contribute to the progress of society, or at least I like to think this way, and this makes me happier.
How often do you find quiet time to just think and focus deeply on work without any distractions? You mentioned to me that you value quiet mornings.
Yes. So the thing I'm trying to do, I try to allocate as much time as possible for sleep. Now, even if I allocate, say, 11 or 12 hours for sleep, I won't sleep for 11 or 12 hours. So what I end up doing is I end up lying in bed thinking. And some people hate it. They say, you have to take a sleeping pill, but I never take pills. I love these moments. I get so many brilliant ideas, or at least they seem brilliant to me at the moment, while I'm lying in bed, either late in the evening or early in the morning. That's my favorite time of the day. Sometimes I wake up, I go take a shower, still without the phone. Beautiful ideas can come to you while you're doing your morning exercise, your morning routine, without a phone. If you open your phone first thing in the morning, what you end up being is a creature that is told what to think about for the rest of the day. Same is true in a way if you've been consuming news from social media late at night. But then how do you define what is important and what you really want to become in life? Now, I'm not saying you have to completely stay away from all sources of information, but take some time to think about what's really important for you and what you want to change in this world. You have to do something that is valuable. But if you're doing something that everybody else is doing anyway, what's the value of it? Now, it sounds easier than it is done to do something that nobody else is doing, because we humans are surrounded by all kinds of information, which makes us want to copy what we are perceiving. At the same time, there are so many areas which you can explore that have nothing to do with the information you receive on the daily basis. So it's extremely important to curate the information sources that you have, so that you wouldn't be somebody who is left to the will of AI-based algorithmic feed telling you what's important, so that you end up consuming the same information, the same stuff, the same memes, the same news as everybody else. But rather, you should be proactive. You should deliberately try to set a goal, an area that you want to explore, and then actively search information that is relevant to this field. I do 300 push-ups and 300 squats every morning. And in addition to that, I go to the gym normally 5-6 times a week, spending between 1 and 2 hours every day.
So push-ups and squats are still a big part of your routine.
Yes, this is how I start my day. I'm not sure they do a lot in terms of changing your body, but they're definitely a good way to practice self-discipline. Because you don't want to do these push-ups in the morning most of the days. Squats are particularly boring. They're not that hard. They're just boring. But you overcome it. And then it's much easier to start doing other things related to your work, for example. When I can, I also take an ice bath, because it's another exercise of self-discipline. I think the main muscle you can exercise is this muscle, the muscle of self-discipline. You know, not your biceps or your pecs or anything else. Because if you get to train that one, everything else just comes by itself.
Yeah, everything else becomes easy.
I'm a human being like everybody else. I do get to experience emotions. Some of them are not very pleasant. But I believe that it's the responsibility of every one of us to cope with these emotions and to learn to work through them. Self-discipline is particularly important, because without it, how can you overcome this seemingly endless loop of negativity or despair that ultimately leads to depression for some people? I normally never have depression. I don't remember having depression in the last 20 years at least. Maybe when I was a teenager. But one of the reasons for that is I start doing things. I identify the problem, I can see a solution, and I start executing the strategy. If you are stuck in this loop of being worried about something, nothing's ever going to change. And people often make this mistake thinking, oh, I should just have some rest and then regain energy. This is not how it works. You gain energy by doing something. So you start doing something, then it happens. You feel motivated, you feel inspired. And then ultimately you do something else, a little bit more, and in a few years, who knows, you may end up achieving great things.
Yeah, that's the thing that people really confuse. If you're stuck in a depressive cycle, Even when you really, 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 really don't want to do anything, just do something. Try to make progress, because the good feeling comes in the end of that. The whole point is to do first and then feel, not feel and then do.
Exactly. And going to the gym is a good example. There are many days when you don't want to start working out. But you have to overcome this initial reluctance. And then you get to a point that you enjoy it. And you think, oh my God, it was such a good idea to come to the gym today. But it's similar to pretty much every activity. You get to write some code. Write a small piece of code first. And then you get inspired. Then you'll come up with more ideas. You need to write a novel or just write a paragraph. This is pretty obvious and it's not a secret. But because we are bombarded with all kinds of information that is not really important for us in terms of becoming successful, we often forget the important things. And this is one of them.
If you want to reach your full potential and maintain clarity of mind, stay away from addictive substances. My success and health are the result of 20 plus years of complete abstinence from alcohol, tobacco, coffee, pills, and illegal drugs. Short-term pleasure isn't worth your future.
So think about this. If your brain is this most valuable tool you have in your journey to success and happiness, why would you destroy this tool for short-term pleasure? This sounds ridiculous. Well, first of all, don't be afraid to be contrarian. Set your own rules. Secondly, if you feel you need to drink, there must be some problem you're trying to conceal. There's some fear you're not ready to confront. And you have to address this fear. If there is a good-looking girl you're afraid to approach, get rid of this fear, approach her, practice, do it again and again. It's pretty banal, but this advice works.
Fix the underlying problem, which is usually at the very bottom is always going to be fear. Work on that.
And very often people are trying to escape something in their lives with alcohol. What is it they're trying to escape? What is this problem? You have to get to the bottom of it. Your mind is trying to tell you something valuable, and instead of addressing it directly, you are flooding it in alcohol, which is sort of a spiritual painkiller, but works only temporarily, and then you have to pay the debt with interest. One thing most people agree on is that setting goals and staying positive and confident does allow you to achieve the things you want to achieve. It's very hard to believe, though, that you can just manifest things into being without applying effort in the direction that seems to be logical. Maybe some people exist that can just sit on the bank of a river and materialize things by the power of their thought. But I'm not sure I'm one of these people. I always found it more easy to believe that if you couple this optimism and faith with logical action, then it is bound to be successful.